Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Woo Factor, a podcast exploring the subtle forces that shape who we become. I am your host, Suzy Woo, woohoo, and I want you to live a life that makes you say woo. We take the woo and turn it into wow. I'm so pleased that my very first guest on my very first episode is none other than Alan Clay. Alan is a New Zealand writer and astrologer. He's the NCGR International Delegate for New Zealand. That's the National Council for Geocosmic Research. And one of the most popular speakers in their international talks program. He's the author of New Stars for a New Era, a new consciousness workbook for our 10 new planets, and Sedna Consciousness, the soul's path of destiny. I am so excited. I cannot wait to share the expertise of Alan Clay and his research on the dwarf planets and what they mean. Alan will be presenting at our first annual Metaphysical, Holistical, and Mystical Expo taking place this August and 15th and 16th in Erie, Pennsylvania. So be sure to check out Alan's all-day workshop on Saturday, and he's also doing a special presentation on Sunday, and he'll be there to meet and greet, and you could also purchase a copy of one of his books, and maybe if you're real nice, he'll sign it for you. I don't know. Alrighty, so let's get into it. Let's meet Alan. Okay, so here we are with Mr. Alan Clay. Super duper excited. I really prepared one question for you. Just one question.
Good.
And what it is I'm very curious on what inspired you from studying the dwarf planets to actually launching a university.
Well, I mean, I see these new planets as new consciousness energies that we're discovering. You know, the outer planets are aspects of consciousness, the inner planets aspects of personality. And we've thought of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as unconscious collective. In modern astrology, we think of them as unconscious collective energies. But actually, as we become conscious of them, they're new consciousness energies that are available to us. Uranus is intuitive consciousness, Neptune spiritual consciousness, and Pluto psychological consciousness. So I jumped into Sedna, which is the new outer limit of our solar system, or has been up until Leleakuhonua was discovered in 2015, and that's outer limit orbit of 11,406 years. Wow, that's an out there new consciousness energy that is here for us. I mean, I relate her to our soul's path of destiny, which is, our lives, each life is just a sort of fraction of that 11,406-year orbit that Sedna has. But if you think that our soul incarnates over a number of lifetimes, that orbit represents our soul intends to grow through those incarnations. It's a growth process. The Sedna placement in our chart talks about what our soul really wants to do in this life, how our soul is growing. And so, having discovered that, I then, wanted to share that discovery with other people. So I wrote a book on Sedna, and then I started teaching courses. And that just expanded. Sedna was at that stage the outer limit of our solar system. And so all of the new dwarf planets were part of that. They were inside Sedna's orbit. They're all inner planets for Sedna. And so I had to start researching those other planets and sort of understanding them and so on, started teaching about them. Really, the teaching is a way to enable people to understand these new consciousness energies consciously in our lives. And because in the courses and in the workshops that I teach, we're onboarding the energy practically. We're understanding it, and we're looking at our charts to see how it is in our lives. And it's, it's a big research, through those classes. So everyone learns through that process of seeing it in each other person's life.
Sure. I think it's the best way to teach astrology is by using your own chart, isn't that? Because everybody wants to know about themselves.
That's it. That's it.
It's
And
very effective.
it's a
Yes.
whole new language that we've got to sort of understand ourselves with.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Alrighty. So you're going to be teaching a full day workshop or a seminar on 5 of those 10.
Mm.
Which 5 are they and what do they represent?
So we're going to look at the 4 main ones, the 4 well-known ones. So some of them are called officially dwarf planets by the astronomers. And so that's Haumea, MakeMake, and Eris. So we're going to look at those 3, and then we're going to look at Sedna, because Sedna is also, although not officially by the astronomers, called a dwarf planet, is in most programs, and most people can access their Sedna placement. So we're going to look at those 4, and then we're going to look at Ixion, which is our new seeker consciousness. Ixion is Pluto's lawless brother, orbits in the same orbit as Pluto, but just a few years longer, and is in myth a sort of a lawless influence, and is encouraging us, I think, seeker consciousness, encouraging us to break free from traditions and from sort of expectations and do what we want to, and ask for forgiveness afterwards rather than permission before if we step over any boundaries and so on.
I ask you about that one. So for Ixion, I kind of feel like it's a two-faced thing. Like, I know what I did bad, I know what I did wrong, but then I go even worse. So, like, how does that turn into, like, how can we evolve from that?
Yeah, good. So these outer planets, they work differently depending, they're aspects of consciousness, and so they work differently depending on our current level of consciousness. And so we've thought of them as unconscious collective influences because we've been unconscious of them. And that's what they are when we're unconscious of them. Yes, Ixion and the myths, we get often the meaning, some of the meaning from the myth behind the name. And the myths,
my favorite part. I love the myths.
And they transmit knowledge across time and culture. That's what's beautiful about them. But they have to be reinterpreted for the new time and the new culture. And they're frequently talking about the unconscious manifestation of the planet, because that's how people were when the myth was evolved. They're teaching stories of the myths, and they're sort of evolved to help people live at that time. And we're evolving in consciousness. So the myths talk about the unconscious. And yes, Ixion and the unconscious, well, just passionately doing what we want, and asking for forgiveness afterwards rather than permission before could be quite disruptive to other people, could be. And in myths, he was a bit of a sociopath, and so he killed his father-in-law, and he sort of wanted to rape the wife of Zeus, the head of the gods. And so obviously that's not sort of, going to be received well. And he didn't learn from mistakes. And this is the challenge that Ixion is bringing us. We passionately do what we want, but we have to be sensitive to the unspoken agreements in our relationships. There's always unspoken boundaries about how far we can go. And so we have to be sensitive that we can go right up to the boundary. It's different for each person. So, and we can even cross the boundary if we're wanting to make a point, sort of in some way. But if we go further than that, we're in trouble. And if we don't learn from our mistakes, then obviously in myth he gets in the end bound to a burning wheel and sent spinning through hell for all eternity. So it's a cautionary tale. We do need to but it opens to when we allow there's an authenticity that Ixion gives us, and we need that authenticity in our contact with the divine. Pluto dissolves our ego so that we can make contact with the divine. That's we have to kind of surrender to that Pluto experience, and then it's empowering, And Ixion teaches us to be authentic in that contact with the divine. So we're not our ego, but we're still authentically ourselves in some way, and that's what Ixion is bringing us to, at the more spiritual level.
And then we have Haumea. Can you share a little bit about her?
She's so beautiful. The goddess of rebirth in Hawaiian tradition, mythology. So she's bringing a sort of, and I look at her as the higher octave of Neptune. So turning his sort of psychic opening into a deep psychic connection with the oneness of life. We're all one, actually. We appear to be individual, but in fact, we are all one. And so that's what Haumea is. It's a higher spiritual thing than Neptune, a higher octave of that, where we know we're all one. And we can trust that spiritual process that's going on in our lives. We have to have faith with Neptune. We have to there's a whole sort of game going on. We have to see through the illusion and so on. But with Haumea, it's a deep connection with the oneness of existence, with the magic of being alive. It's magic. It's actually magic. And we sort of get lost in our normal lives and we don't really sort of, and that's what Haumea is sort of bringing us in touch with. So.
Okay, and then let's move to MakeMake.
So the higher octave of Uranus, and Uranus in modern astrology is thought of as the higher octave of Mercury. So Uranus just discovered sort of in the last 200 years or something. And so traditional astrology talks about the planets we could see with our naked eyes. And now we've got new ones. Many astrologers believe that we discover these new planets when we're ready to incorporate the new consciousness. And so Uranus, intuitive consciousness, consciousness growth really has started since the discovery of Uranus. We could be on our own journey of consciousness growth for the first time. Prior to that, it's been a group process. It's been that Neptunian. It's been religions. It's been sort of it's been conditioned by a group in some way, and then Uranus enabled us to sort of step forward with our individual consciousness growth. Neptune put a spiritual path in there. But that Uranus now as a higher octave, so Mercury, ideas, Uranus networking those ideas intuitively, and then MakeMake lifting that into what do those ideas, what does that network address? What does it mean? What is the, the bigger construct? What is the nation it addresses, or the culture it addresses? What is the bigger construct? So MakeMake is talking about our model of the world and our place in it. We are each, there is no real world. There is just sensation that we are interpreting, and each of us does that differently. So we each understand the world differently. And we understand our place in it and how we can work in it. And that's our MakeMake, that understanding.
Does it have anything to do with, Uranus is electricity and lightning and the higher mind, god of the skies. And so going above that, would you say that has to do with our onboard extraterrestrial connection?
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Not so much in terms of a guide or sort of that sort of connection, but in terms of that understanding of the world. If our world has extraterrestrials in it, it's in our MakeMake, and our MakeMake is enabling that connection. Yes, it's all to do with our understanding of the world. And that's built from our experience, right? A baby sees visuals and hears sounds, but has no MakeMake to make sense out of that. In fact, it's just, and over time, they put a sense into the visuals, into the sounds, we do that, and we're building our MakeMake, our understanding of the world. So it's Eris is our next one that we're going to work with, which is sort of, we're going out from Saturn in this order, and they get more spiritual as we go further out. So Saturn is our real world experience. We're living in the Saturnian world. That's the astrology up to. That's what we could see. That was the limit of our experience for thousands of years. And so now we're going out. So MakeMake is the understanding, and then we're at Eris, and Eris is she's our diversity consciousness. She's very present in the world at the moment, and we deny these consciousness energies as a way of making them real in our lives, because obviously they can't be denied, just like Pluto. You can't deny it. And so Eris is like that. Eris is actually the higher octave of Pluto, as I see it. Eris is the brother or sister of Mars in myth, and they were always in battle together. And Eris was always the last one to leave the battlefield. And she laid waste to both sides equally. She didn't take sides. She was just, laying waste to both sides equally. And she's the last one, and her head brushed the heavens when she, each new challenge. So she's got an endless strength. And in modern astrology, Pluto is the higher octave of Mars, turning his sort of action and aggression into a sort of a transformation, a change, an ability to make change in the world and in our consciousness, an ability to understand that, psychological consciousness. So, so all the planets inside Neptune orbit in a plane called the ecliptic. And that ecliptic is consensus reality. It relates to Neptune's pulling all of those inner planets into sort of a consensus. It's the gravity of Neptune and the sun that do it. So our ego and our spiritual consciousness are pulling all those energies, inner planet energies, into a consensus. And all the dwarf planets cut through that consensus on an angle. Pluto cuts through at 17 degrees. So Pluto's spending some time in the underworld of the consensus and some time in the overworld. And we know that with that psychological Plutonian consensus, consciousness, that it's talking about that, that Martian stuff that we're hiding away in that underworld that we're not prepared to, the shadow stuff. And so, and when we deal with that, we make it a power. That's what's empowering about Pluto. We let that go. We understand it in a new way. And so that's the power of Pluto. Now, Eris, being the sister of Mars, is the higher octave of Pluto, lifting that that psychological understanding into a sort of a full disclosure. A full disclosure of she cuts through at 44 degrees, Pluto, and the other way from Pluto. So Pluto at 17, Eris at 44, almost a semi-square. And so she's powerful, and she's got this power. Her head, she's actually female power, a new female power that we're getting in the world. So Pluto is a male power, and Pluto and Mars frequently sort of coercive. In there, we experience them as, Mars frequently as coercive, and Pluto also, when we're not conscious, sort of coercive. And that's a male power, I'm going to suggest. And we're now finding a female power, so a power which is sensitive in its contact, doesn't need any more power than's needed in any particular thing, but a power that rises to meet any needs. And this is where we get the sort of the goddess of discord sort of thing from Eris, where we're kind of, oh my God, Eris. She's going to sort of, because she's full disclosure. She's like, everything, we have to see it all. We can't fool ourselves, and we can't be fooled, and so on. And
now, what's going on with her currently? Because those themes are all over the place current.
That's very important, isn't it? And that's what I mean. We discover these new planets when we need them in our lives, when we're ready to incorporate this new consciousness. So we're in a part of the world a time of the world where we're actually all in contact with one another a lot more than we've ever been. It's kind of, it's becoming a group consciousness over time. We're developing a group consciousness, a conscious group consciousness. And in that, we're discovering the diversity in the world. We each live in our own world. It's not the same world that we live in. And we've got cultural constructs that pull those together in each country. But those are breaking down too, with the world interconnection we're having. And all of this has been Sedna going through Eris for 100 years, and then Taurus for 55 years or something, and is now in Gemini. And so
didn't she just change?
She just changed.
Yeah.
She just changed. So she's last year, beginning of last year, I think, was the last, but over these last years, she's been coming in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And Sedna is, so discovery events, things in the year of discovery can be a way to get the meaning of these new planets. And so 2003, in the year that Sedna was discovered, we discovered neural networks. And neural networks is what enables robots to think for themselves. It's based on our brains. Robots have, since that 2003, have learnt to learn, looking at patterns and putting patterns together and learning from that experience. And that is AI. That's what AI is. And so Sedna rules AI. And since Sedna's gone into Gemini, boom, ChatGPT,
Wow.
you know, even Google's AI is called Gemini, you know, so it's
Yes, yes.
so, so so we're coming into a new world consciousness, and just hopping back to Eris, um, and we're discovering the diversity in there, and we're fearful of that. The Neptunian thing is people have to believe the same thing that I believe, otherwise it's a problem. You know, if you believe something different, that threatens my belief. Oh my gosh. And so
Hasn't done very well for us.
it's not good. It's not helping. You know, it comes from our time in the jungle, and we're in a different period where we're now a lot more in contact with one another, and we have to accept one another. Um, that's what Eris is, you know, the famous myth of Eris is the apple of discord, where she wasn't invited to the wedding of someone important. Uh, you know, is in heaven, yeah, and so she threw a goal, and it was Chiron that didn't invite her, of course. So, you know, the healing that we need to go through with Chiron. And so we're in a period where we're needing this healing. And she threw the goddess of the apple of discord into the gathering, and it was inscribed to the fairest. And so, you know, the goddesses all started quarreling over who was the fairest. And you know, Paris was deputized to decide who was the fairest. And he decided, I think, Aphrodite, because she offered him the marriage with the Helen of Troy, the fairest woman in the world. And so he chose Aphrodite. And as a result, you know, the Trojan War happened. And so this is where we get the Eris is the goddess of discord, but she just revealed the discord, the competitive discord that was there naturally. That was why she was excluded, because she would do that. And so, you know, and so we're trying to exclude discord. We're trying to exclude things that are not the same as us in our lives, but that's no longer possible, actually.
Yeah. You know, my North Node is with Eris. And I've been shunned and looked over like the whole first half of my life. And so
Yeah.
now that when I got on my spiritual journey and all the things that I do now, like I fully embody that. And like, in fact, I always say in my healer's course, no healer left behind. No one's left behind. Like it's very important to me. I don't care if you're, you know, red, green, or plaid. No one
Yes,
is left behind.
exactly. And everyone is valuable in their own way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the new understanding that we need to come to, and there's frequently an argy-bargy that goes on when we're having to grow and
Right.
get a
Yeah.
new understanding. And so we're in
Yes.
that argy-bargy period in the world at the moment. So,
All righty. So then shall we go to Sedna now?
yes, and that's the one we'll finish up with in our work at the expo in the workshop, and yes, and so Sedna, I've just talked about that sort of period. She's coming to her closest point in her orbit at the moment. 11,406 year orbit, coming to its closest point in 2076. So we're at a key point, yeah. And what's she talking about? So I've said already, she's talking about our spiritual destiny, what our soul wants to do in this life. And our soul wants to grow. We've incarnated, and we want to grow in a certain way. Our soul wants to grow in a certain way. It's not the same as our ego. It's not the same as, you know, different parts of us. It's our soul growth, but it's obviously what's most important, because the soul will go on and the ego will.
Yeah, we just get different meat suit each time.
That's it.
Same
That's
soul.
it. That's it. So we're at a key point in that cycle where coming to our closest point. And what is that? So we look at the last cycle frequently. We look at the cycles to see what was happening. And in the last, when we were last at this cycle, this point in the Sedna cycle, we had the Neolithic Revolution, huge point in our evolution as humans, where we stopped all over the planet within 100 years. We stopped walking around and throwing spears into animals, and we settled down and started growing vegetables. All of our civilization has come from that point because over time, we had time to do other things. We didn't have to, we kind of idealize the old days and imagine that when we were sort of hunting animals, that we had lots of time to lie in the sun and then, oh, look, I'll just go throw a spear into an animal. But no, actually, we spent all of our time getting our food. That's basically what happened.
Surviving, yeah.
Yeah, we had to survive. And then when we settled down in communities and started growing, vegetables, we could grow more food than we needed. And we could specialize. Some of us over time could become astrologers and start, looking at the stars and thinking, what does that mean? And all of our civilization has happened in the last 6 Sedna months, the last half of the Sedna cycle. All right. So got no records before that apart from sort of the rock drawings and the stuff like that. So we're very young as a species. We're very young, and we're young in our consciousness growth, very young. And it's all come from this enabling of more time that happened in the Neolithic Revolution. And then as Sedna went into Eris, in the 1920s, I think it was, that period from 1920s through till what am I saying? So no, the 1820s, I think. Anyway, or 1860s. I think it was 1860s. I've got Neptune, Mercury conjunct, so I don't hold these things in my mind. but I think 1860s to the 1960s, yes, in Eris, and that's the Industrial Revolution. That's the whole sort of wow. Our whole civilization got a whole new burst, and then in the 68, 66, 68 went into Taurus. Sedna into Taurus, and through that we've had the whole sort of world, the networking thing has come into being. Well, women women power right through that, from Eris, suffragettes, and into Taurus, with the women's livers, the brow burning women's livers there in the 60s, and so on. And so the empowerment of women right through this period has really come back. So we're coming into sort of the matriarchal age, potentially, or actually, I think, a new sort of age. So we've been from matriarchal, we've been in patriarchal. It's all right, there's been problems, but there's also been benefits. And now we're coming into a new matriarchal age. This Eris female power is part of that. But it's also the Sedna, into Eris, into Taurus, the whole women's liberation thing. And then at the end of Taurus, the whole Me Too movement and all of those buried, sort of accepted, male domination things that that have come up to really, and so now, I mean, we've got women leaders. We've got sort of, we're in the point where but it's still, just the beginnings. But
can you share the myth of Sedna?
Yes. So another sort of strong myth, and so again, sort of works differently at different consciousness levels. But so she was she lived with her father, and she couldn't find a partner, a husband. And then a handsome prince came from a far off land and asked for her hand in marriage. And her father gave her hand in marriage to the handsome prince, and the prince took her away and imprisoned her in his castle on top of a mountain in the middle of a lake, and treated her very badly. And when he was away, he imprisoned her in the dungeon, and her father got to hear of this, and he came and stole her away at one point when the handsome prince, the bird king, he was actually an evil bird king. He was just masquerading as a handsome prince. He was an evil bird king, and so stole her away, and they're rowing across the lake to get away from the mountain, and the bird king comes back and beats his wings and creates a huge storm, and the boat's about to tip over. And the father can think of nothing to do to save himself except throw Sedna overboard, sort of sacrifice Sedna. So he sacrifices Sedna. She doesn't want to die, so she clings onto the side of the boat. Bird King's beating his wings. There's a huge storm. And the father takes an axe and chops off Sedna's fingers one at a time so she can't hold on anymore. And she sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and she becomes the goddess of the food supply for the Inuit people. It's an Inuit myth. And all of her fingers become the seals and the walruses that the Inuit people live off. And it's important to realize that she didn't die. We think, okay, she's at the bottom of the ocean. She's not suffocating. She had a painful transition where she was holding on to the boat. She was holding on to reality. And she wasn't being counterintuitive and letting go of reality. She didn't realize that she'd become a goddess through this experience, and she was holding on to reality. And so, she did become a goddess, and the gods and the goddesses are alive and part of the Inuit people's world. And they had to look after her so that she didn't sort of send storms and they couldn't go out and fish. So they had to comb her hair, and they had to look after her, and they had to sort of, and so Sedna's frequent. She's talking about that spiritual destiny that our soul is talking about, incarnating in this life and so on. And there's a growth that we want to do. And we have to sort of let go of the ego world, the problems, the realities, the crises that we're having in the real world. So if we're experiencing a Sedna crisis and we're not letting go, there'll be repeated pain. We'll be holding on. I mean, it's the Saturnian thing. We think we have to hold on, we have to solve the crisis. But if it's a Sedna crisis, if it's a spiritual crisis, then we need to be counterintuitive. We need to let go early. First experience of pain. So we're out of our depths. We're on the spiritual path. We're out of our depths. We don't know what to do. And we think, I'm going to grab hold of that boat. I'm going to grab hold of what I know. I'm going to grab hold of the pain and suffering that I'm experiencing, because that's real and that's what I'm here to solve. And that's the responsible thing to do. But no, if it's a Sedna crisis, we have to be counterintuitive and we have to let go. It may not feel responsible, but it's spiritually responsible. And it's the best spiritual response. And we're scared of transcendence. That's the challenge there. Why do we hold on? Because we're scared. We're scared of transcendence. We don't know where it will hold it, where it will take us. It's going to take us somewhere. But look, if we're experiencing pain, we know it's going to take us away from the pain. Be counterintuitive, let go. The pain's coming from our lifestyle being out of sync with what our spiritual growth requires. Our spiritual growth requires something, and we have to honor that. We have to trust that. That's the highest thing we can do. And so, and when we do that, actually, the crisis disappears. The crisis is only there to enable us to let go of the problem. That's why it's there. And so if it's a Sedna crisis, and you'll know if it's a Sedna crisis when there's repeated pain, you're doing the same thing and you get repeated pain. So the second time you get the pain, think, this is probably a Sedna crisis. And then what do I need to let go of? What do I need to let go of here? There's something I need to let go of. And let go of that. And then
the rewards are so much brighter than clutching on to what feels safe and comfortable. You will never know unless you release it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So
yeah, I've noticed in a lot of my readings where there is a heavily aspected Sedna that there actually has been a patriarchal or a masculine betrayal. I've noticed. Yeah. Like because I'll say it and then yeah. That's how we can learn as astrologers to test the theories out with our clients. That's what I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, phenomenal. Good.
Yeah.
Way awesome. Okay, so that's what we're going to be covering in a full day, and then you'll also be on hand having your books as well too, right? Cool.
Exactly.
Now the next day, Sunday, you're doing a presentation on the L1. So I would really love, if you wouldn't mind, to just give a little summary of who she is, what she represents, and a little bit of a summary to help wet our whistle for that presentation.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Leleakuhonua. She's named after a flock of birds from the Hawaiian creation chart. They're migratory birds, and they they make a big journey from Hawaii to Alaska every year and back to survive the winter. And on that journey, they're independent. And interdependent at the same time. The chicks are feeding themselves in the first day of their lives, so they're sort of independent, but they migrate in a group, and they're in a V shape to minimize wind drag. A huge group of them, and they rotate one to the front all the time because that bird's doing the big work. And they've got extra sensory perception to tell where they are. They can read magnetic energy. They can see it. They can see magnetic energy. They can see ley lines. They can half of their brain sleeps while the other half keeps flying, and then they swap over sides of their brain. So they're amazing beings, and so Leleakuhonua is giving us this sort of ability to be part of a group, and yet be ourselves. I talked about Ixion sort of enabling that sort of authenticity. And Leleakuhonua is a sednoid. She's the other sednoid that we've got at the moment. So Sedna's got this big oblong orbit of 11,406 years. And there is a new class of planet Sedna has enabled or sort of brought to us, which have these huge orbits. Leleakuhonua has an orbit of 55,000 years. So talking about this huge migratory journey, and then has an orbit, a huge orbit, talking about, so Sedna talking about our soul's path of destiny, and Leleakuhonua talking about the soul family that we're part of. We're all of the souls together. We're all, we're part of a soul family that we've made agreements to meet in this life and help one another on our growth. You and I, we've made, our souls have made an agreement to be here now, talking about this. And it's soul work that we're doing here on that Leleakuhonua level. And that's all of our enemies, and it's everyone that we interact with is all part of that Leleakuhonua.
Even our enemies at the end of our life, all those masks come off. And so that's just who they needed to be in this lifetime for us. Sometimes they need to play the villain, but that's not who they are at a soul level, in my perspective.
Totally. And so Leleakuhonua gives us the ability to see our soul reflected in the other souls in our lives. I can see my soul reflected in this conversation with you at the moment, on that level. So it's quite a beautiful new energy that where it's got this huge orbit, and yet it's supportive. It's, that soul family is actually supportive. It's just in the way that Sedna's huge orbit is having that soul growth perspective on our life is supportive. Actually, it's so we're kind of reaching out into the void, but we're finding support in there. In fact, it's not like this.
So because it has such an enormous orbit, generations will have it in the same sign, but not in the same house. And so how would one interpret that in their own chart? Would it be the aspects and the house location?
Yes, we mainly go for the house is really where we see it manifesting most clearly in our personal lives. So that's
that would be a pursuit to find like our soul group, or those who we feel connected with on a much deeper level than just our co-workers at the office.
Yes, but it's probably expressed in our co-workers in the office because they're part of our group. They're part of it, and so but on a whole lot of different levels. You can see there. Yeah, it's a very rich sort of. So it's a multi-dimensional consciousness, the Leleakuhonua, where we're coming to a new, Sedna is our soul consciousness, and Leleakuhonua is a multi-dimensional soul consciousness.
Oh, I love that. It sounds to me like it's many different universes collaborating and then bringing like a solidified understanding that's not audible verbal, but it's even beyond what we know as telepathy. It's just this big mutual understanding
You got it.
that all is love and stillness and bliss. Like that's how I feel about that.
Totally. Yeah, I'm totally with you.
Oh, I can't wait. Wow. Very exciting. Awesome. Did we cover everything about her? I have to work
I
on the
think,
pronunciation, so I'm not even going to try.
I could just mention the Sabian symbol, maybe help people in terms of and so another way that we look at understand these new planets is to look at the Sabian symbol for their discovery degree. It's like a moment of birth, where we find this new planet in our consciousness. And so It's a person successfully expressing themselves in two realms at once. So I'm going to say currently in Aries. Yes, currently in Aries. And yes, so was in Aries, when she was discovered. It was discovered, not personified.
It's no
Um,
longer in Aries?
yes, yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay,
No,
it still is.
moving very slowly. Yes, so was in Aries
Oh,
and still
very slowly, I would imagine.
very slowly, very slowly. The magic thing with Leleakuhonua and Sedna, in terms of thinking of those huge orbits, they're both coming to their closest point within 2 years of one another in this next century. So, yeah,
That's
2076
magical.
and 2078 for Leleakuhonua. Magical, huh? No link between those two orbits, but
Oh no, rubbish, right? Oh, how special.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
that
So
it's just thrilling. And we know we're going in the right direction. And even those who may not exactly be on board, it doesn't matter because eventually they'll flush their own karma, and you come back anyway. So
that's
if you
it.
don't figure it out now,
That's
you
it.
keep banging your head against the wall. Eventually, you'll look the other way and see some insight there.
You got it. You got it. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
excellent.
that's gong gong. You just introduced gong gong there, banging your head against the wall. But yes, good, good. That's
Now
another
that's
one.
not part of the day, though,
No,
right?
no, we're not
Okay.
going to talk
All
about
right.
that. But
So I
another
almost went too far. That'll have to be another session for another talk that we can have, which I'm definitely open to. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think that'll be about it for today. I really, really am so grateful for the time you've spent with us. And this is actually going to be the number one first episode. It's the first episode. So what a way to kick off my series of the woo factor, turning woo into wow. How do you like that?
I love it. I just love
Way
it.
awesome. Thank you so very much, Alan. I hope that you have a magical afternoon for yourself, and I look forward to seeing you in August.
Lovely. Love talking with you. So beautiful.